Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. Keep Hustling. In this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. Let's get to it. Welcome to Keep Hustling with my guests all the way from Santa Barbara, California, Carrie West. Carrie, thank you so much for being here today.
I'm thrilled. I can't wait to have this conversation.
We've already achieved something because you said that it's a freezing 50 there, and I said it's a warm 40. So I feel like we're coming together here. We're migrating towards each other, and that's where great things happen. When the atoms collide,
yep,
good things happen. So I feel like we're getting somewhere. I want to jump right in, and I always encourage our guests to read the full bios, which we're going to do, which they will do, I should say. Sorry about that. As I mentioned before we came on, you're an author, which we'll get to. You're a speaker, which we may or may not get to because, someone will have to go hear you speak. And then we have a term that I want to dive into called a narrative coach. Now, as I said, I've met coaches before. I've spoken to coaches before. I've worked with coaches before. What inspired you to take the narrative approach, or why did that speak to you? How did that begin? And then we'll get into it.
This is going to sound like a really weird statement, but stories literally saved my life. I had very, very, very humble beginnings, and that's a way of saying they were terrible. And the way I could fall asleep that night, my self-care, as early as I can remember, was telling myself stories about my real parents who were looking for me. And if I didn't hold on to that hope of a better life and that there was more than what I was enduring at that point, I wouldn't have made it. So they literally saved my life. And they encouraged me. I wrote journals. I kept journals of every story I could tell. And then I worked in the entertainment industry and started examining all the stories. Look, let's face it, stories are integral to a human being's world.
I want you to dig into that because I agree. And listen, I'm in sales. My primary job is sales. And I'm a parent first. I'm a husband second, or a husband first and a parent second. And I am a salesman third, however you look at it. Taking my relationship with my wife out because she doesn't buy into my stories. Like life, you're right. I agree with you. And I agree with, and I think what you're also saying is like being a dreamer is important. Right? And vision and things like that. Yet so many people say it's not worth it. The story's not real. And if the story's not real, right? Like in your case, not to dig into too much emotion, but like maybe they're not looking for you, right? So my question for you would be, how do you respond to that but it's not, it's real, and a story's a story, and life is life, and life is too serious for stories, and I don't have time for it because I'm too busy with other things.
Hey, we all have our narrative. We all have the story we tell ourselves. We all have the story we put out in the world. You just gave me 5 stories. People have also called me a story whisperer because I see stories everywhere. We have heroes and antagonists. If you're the protagonist of your story, there's antagonists and heroes and mentors and foils and love interests and the humor. It's all there. Our brains need to organize information, and using a standard story structure of a beginning, a middle, and an end, and plots and patterns are perfect for how our brains operate. But when you have a personal story, the tendency is to think, oh, well, that's my life. And I guide people on saying, really? Does it have to be? Listen, every day on a movie set, the first thing they start with before they start the cameras rolling is, where are my new pages? Where are my rewrites? Because your characters develop as the story progresses. And it's even bigger in television when you have serial components. Your characters change as you get to know them. So why can't we do that in life? And I would argue it happens in life all the time. You change, you evolve. When you got married, you became a different person. When you had kids, you took on a father's story. Yeah?
I agree with you. I'm in.
Good.
But do you believe that the first step is that every person has to realize that they are the protagonist of an interesting and important and valuable story?
I don't know that I'd go that way to define it, but I think you have to have awareness first. You can't deal with anything you're not aware of. You need to bring that up.
So how do you first get to the awareness?
Through your patterns. When you start reliving a pattern, do you know how many people I've worked with who are constantly saying, why do I always date terrible people? Why am I always working for companies that don't appreciate my value? Why do I keep repeating this pattern? That's a repeating plot line in my mind. So when you keep repeating, why do my kids always hate me? Why does my spouse always? Why does my partner always? As soon as I hear that, it's like there's a story activated.
It's so interesting you say that, because I was thinking the other day that this is not a 100% certain all the time fact. So I don't want, there are obviously exceptions to every concept, but I think that there's an interesting connection, and I wasn't planning on going here, but you just trickled it in my mind, and I just, it's my show, so I can do whatever
You can do what you want. Yep.
There's an interesting connection between people who have inconsistent relationships and inconsistent professional lives. And again, I'm not saying there are people who have terrible, inconsistent relationships and have long-term careers in the same company, and there are people who have terrible professional jumping around and amazing relationships. I'm not saying, but like, there's a certain level of, and I think that you're right, that the person has to realize that those are parts of their story. And by the way, part of their story might be, and the main character of their story might be the person who can't hold anything together. Yeah. And like, by the way, that might be a pretty interesting story, and that might be interesting to them, and that might be how they live their best life.
Yep.
But what I love about what you're saying is that there's so much of Keep Hustling, so much what we're building here in the 130 episodes or so that we've done is like, everybody has the story, and everybody's version of hustle is different. And if everybody, as you said, realizes that they're the protagonist of their story, and they lean into that and they embrace it, they'll write the new chapters.
Yep.
So I want to go back to one other thing you said, because I think it's super important. And some people call it pivot. I'm just going to say you called it rewriting new chapters. How important is it for people professionally and personally when they're developing their hustle or they're trying to achieve their goals, to realize that you have the story written, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm about to say something bold. If that is how it ends, you've done something wrong. If when you're 20 years old, you're able to perfectly write out how the movie ends every day for the rest of your life, I'm going to say you've done something wrong. And that's how it ends up, is my point. Like when you're 80, you should look back at 20 and say like, oh, I didn't expect that, but that chapter was amazing and I'm so happy I wrote it.
Yep. I would argue that you can start rewriting it when you're 80 years old.
No, I agree with you, but you can't rewrite what you did when you're 20. That my point is the person who thinks that they have everything figured out, that's the worst version of the movie, right? You said every single movie has rewrites. Every single television show has rewrites. Those are fake. It doesn't matter. So therefore, your life, what I'm trying to say is the person who had 20, the person who had 80 looks back and says they never had to rewrite anything. It was exactly as they predicted. Then they've done something wrong, or they're lying. One of the two.
Yeah, I would challenge that. I mean, do you really know when you're 20 what it's going to be like? I mean, come on. COVID threw everybody into a tailspin. Nobody got the COVID story. Nobody. And when my stepson called me and said, what do you do, with COVID? Have you ever experienced anything like that? I said, dude, I've had so many experiences in life, the civil rights movement, the challenges in the 60s and the 70s. There's so many other stories. You learn to say, who am I in the face of these stories?
And who do I become out of it?
Exactly. Who do you want to be as a result of this story? Yes.
That's it.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
I obviously it's a small version of what you're saying, but I think.
But you're not wrong at all.
I'm not very insightful. I'm not usually a very insightful person in the moment. I usually try, I'm usually more retrospective, but I have a vivid memory when it was looking pretty bad here in New York. You brought up COVID, and we had 4 children under the age of 10, under the age of 10. And our youngest was a few months old. And I vividly remember sitting with my wife, and we were both like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Like, this is crazy. Bottle of wine, by the way. And I remember saying to her, and I don't know where this even came into my mind to say, this is a huge opportunity. Like, I don't know how long this is going to last. All I know is that like most of the time when seismic events happen, you have no idea. Like the world is shutting down around us. Thank God everybody we know right now in our immediate family is healthy. Our kids kind of like each other, right? We're about to find out. Like we kind of like our kids. We kind of like each other, so like, we get to create this experience for our kids. Now, by the way, I don't think anybody thought it was going to be as long or as difficult as it was, but I think you're right. Like, I look at the two probably most impactful seismic events of my life as they relate to the outside world, not me getting married, becoming a parent. Obviously, those are big, but like the outside to me, 9/11 and COVID.
Absolutely.
The biggest
Absolutely.
difference between the two, 9/11 was a shock. I was a kid. I had no idea. We thought it was a joke. And then we looked back at it and said, "Oh, that was pretty crazy." But being in my 30s, COVID, 4 kids, like I don't want to say it was great because it wasn't, but like I kind of like that it's in my movie. Is that weird to say? Like I've
No,
never said
no,
that
no,
before.
no,
And I
no,
hope that people
no,
don't like jump on us with this, but yeah.
no, because here's why. Here's why. Every story puts the protagonist through challenges. It's how you form who you're supposed to be at the end of the story. If you don't have these challenges and crises on your journey, you're not doing anything. You're just kind of doodling around and not doing a darn thing. But for you to be forged to be the best person, you are faced with challenges. You're given challenges so that you can see what story is activated, because your challenge will always bring up your story that's activated that's not serving you. And it's an opportunity for you to see it and say, I'm going to respond this way. Life isn't intended to be perfect. It's about us, how we respond when it isn't perfect.
Life, I want to dig in on that. I love that. Life is not about being perfect. Life is about how we respond when things are not perfect. Did I get
Correct.
that right?
That's my quote at the end. You just stole it from me.
Oh gosh. Okay, you said it. You said in the middle. I didn't steal. You got to come up with another one, or I'll read it off this page that I'm looking at of all your quotes. You can't do that. You said it. I didn't steal it. I didn't steal anything. I just repeated what you said. I'm a good listener.
You forced me there. No, I'm kidding.
You know what? Fine. It's my show. I
It's
said
your
already.
show. You get to do what you want.
What is the most important thing someone can do if they are lucky enough, and they may not define it in the way that I'm about to say, but like to realize this is one of those defining moments. This is one of those moments where it's not going right. Like it's not going right. The tire's off the car. It's not even flat, and we're on the side of a road. What should everybody do then?
There's a couple of things. I'm a big proponent of what I call micro moments of change, because what happens at these crisis moments is your amygdala and your cerebellum fire up to activate the fight or flight mode. When you go into that, when 9/11 happened, there was a collective in the world. You were a kid, you don't remember it. I unfortunately wasn't a kid. I remember it clearly. There was this collective airplanes stopped flying. I lived in LA at the time and I could see airplanes all the time. The sky was empty.
There was not a person on the street in New York City. Not one.
Exactly. There was this collective and our amygdalas and our cerebellum were fired up for fight or flight mode. It happens the same with COVID. What are we going to do now? When that happens, you got to take a breath and don't fire up your cerebellum and your amygdala, because when they're fired up, you're not thinking from an adult space. So a micro moment of change is just taking that breath and letting your brain settle so that you can trust that in your adult mind, you'll have an answer. It may not be forthcoming right this red hot second, but it's there when you calm down. The other thing is, what did it trigger? What was that story that got activated? 9/11, everybody thought the world is screwed. If America can get bombed like that, we're in deep trouble. Oh my God. So it brought up this collective theme of the world's falling apart. We're all going to die. Now, like I said, I've got a few years on you. I can't tell you how many times we've had that collective theme come up when different things have happened in the world. So you got to stop that theme. You got to stop that end game story. So changing that is exactly why you need to stop and think in your adult mind. And then I'm reminded of the movie The Martian. Did you see that movie with Matt Damon?
Sure.
He was in the worst survival situation ever. And he just kept getting challenge after challenge after challenge. And what did he keep saying? You work the problem, people. He kept staying calm and saying, I'm going to keep working the problem. What actions can I take? What inspired actions can I take to move me through this? You did it with COVID.
I'll tell you what's so interesting. It's like an ironic contrast. Everybody is the protagonist of their story.
Yes.
And therefore that should lead to a focus on the I. I am the protagonist of my story. I am the most important person in my story. Therefore, I am the most important person in the story.
Yes.
Yet, at the same time, what I'm hearing from you is at those collective aha moments or whatever moments, a person really should realize that there were millions and millions and billions of stories before them and protagonists that were far more interesting or the same, right? Aha, we had so many of these moments. You think it's unique because of these nuances, but it's not unique. There were many, like you just said, there were many before and there'll be many more. So it's this interesting, I'm just hearing this interesting balance between a person feeling that the story is about them
Mhm.
and that the narrative is all about them, feeling very big,
Mhm.
versus you're really an ant because there's so many stories around you. It's just an interesting. I'm trying to process really how to internalize that, but that's kind of the message I'm getting here.
Absolutely. And again, unfortunately, we are in somewhat of a similar situation. It's not as dramatic as COVID or 9/11, but our world is very divisive. I've been watching Super Bowls forever, and the headlines are still about the halftime show. And it's like, seriously, can we not celebrate what the Seattle Seahawks did? But we're in a time of uncertainty in the world. So you're right. It's another one of these moments in the world where people are like, what do we do? And my recommendation, my suggestion is, what does this mean for you personally? Because honestly, you can't respond to how the whole world is responding. You can't respond to every headline. It'll drive you crazy. You can't respond to every health report that came out from the CDC, from the government. God, COVID just really upended everything, and how so many people had all these opinions and conspiracy theories came out. You could drive yourself crazy. The only story you can handle is your own.
That's what's great is you're the protagonist, but you're also the director. Somewhat.
Exactly.
There's a producer around there. There's other people, but ultimately you are the director also.
There's how many channels do we have now to stream through? How many stories? We can flip a channel every 5 seconds and have a new story. You can't follow all of them. You certainly can't direct and write them all. The only one you can direct and write is your own. And then see how it plays out with all the other stories going on. It's amazing to me how many times I see people shift in a huge way when they stop trying to fix the rest of the world and say, I gotta jump into that. I gotta post on that. I gotta get involved, and just say, hold on. What's your best role in the collective story? You'll know that once you know what your story is.
I want to perfect segue. I want to jump into one more thing. I don't want to lose time. I want to lose the time without asking you this question. I usually choose a line from the bio that really speaks to me. So I want to ask you about the following. Carrie helps you update your life story into one that reflects your potential, setting the stage for a future filled with purpose and fulfillment. First of all, I love that. I have a direct question related to this.
Mhm.
It says, and I'm going to repeat again, Carrie helps you update your life story into one of fulfillment. That means that stories can be updated. That doesn't mean that the story happened and you're rewriting or editing the notes, unless I'm wrong. What you're saying is that people can update their life story.
Mhm.
Can you take us there? Can you give us maybe a tidbit or a tip or a framework?
Yes.
For how a person should think of that?
Yes. Most people are writing an automatic pilot story. What I mean by that is we pick up stories from the day we're born. We observe and we absorb everything around us. So we accept stories that may or may not be our own. So for a long time, I had this story that said I was a deeply flawed person and didn't deserve relationships, happiness, or health, or wealth, or anything. I had to understand that story and understand that it was given to me. It was not mine. I made decisions based on information because I didn't have information at the time. So having that idea that, wait a minute, maybe I was given faulty information. What's the story I really want? And I said, I want my theme of my story to be that I am abundant, prosperous, happy, healthy person that puts out good vibes in the world and keeps everybody motivated and inspired. When I started focusing on that as my new theme, of who I was in my story and the kind of person I wanted to be, I could forgive all the crap that came before. I could forgive my parents for rejecting me. I could forgive all of it because I understood my parents didn't reject me because I was a damaged person. They rejected me because they had their own issues.
And that's the update. That's the software update.
Yeah. So once I updated the software, I said, okay, what's the ending I want? Dang, I've got a free space here. And everybody has a different ending they want. Like my next book, Money Rewritten, is out in 2 weeks. And somebody said to me, well, I don't know that I really want to be a millionaire. It seems like a lot of responsibility. I said, no one's saying you have to be a millionaire. What's comfortable for you? Well, what's comfortable for me is that I have a good savings account so I don't worry if I get fired. That's it. That's your ending. You just want safety.
I love that. I got it. Everyone should listen to rewind 60 seconds, 120 seconds. Listen to that again. I'm going to listen to it again for sure. I want to ask you, your bio says, or the title or your name in the bio that or on your website, it says Carrie Casey West from Hollywood Tales to Life Stories. We spoke about Hollywood Tales. We spoke about life stories. I know your name is Carrie and your name is West. I know you're from the West Coast. I know you're from Santa Barbara. What does KC mean?
I changed my name 20 years ago. When I was growing up, I never liked my name. And my mom always said, my last name was Powell when I was growing up. And my mom always said, well, when you get married, you'll get your husband's name. And I said, well, that doesn't seem right to me. What if I don't like it? What if his last name is Jerry? So would I be Carrie Jerry? Yuck. So yeah, Carrie Jerry or Carrie Harry or Carrie.
Yeah.
It's like there's too many ways that can fall apart fast. So I changed my name. I looked it up and I picked West, honestly, because I lived on the West Coast. I did a lot of research on names and how they developed.
Nailed it.
You got it. Yep, you did. And then I said, well, it needs something in between. What's the bridge? Because I like music. So what's the bridge? And okay, I'm going to date myself again. I love Casey and the Sunshine Band.
No
way. It's not anything more elaborate than that. It is not anything really magical or well thought out. That was it.
Oh, I love that.
And then a lot of people told me that if I only used Casey West, then people wouldn't know I was female. And I said, well, why wouldn't I want them to know I'm female? Well, females don't get ahead as quickly as men. And it's like, well, I'm changing that. That's an old story. That's not my story.
Dare I say, what you just said in the last 2 minutes is Carrie rewrote her life story to one that reflected and has led to potential and set the stage for a future filled with purpose and fulfillment. Dare I say?
Yep.
Love it. Carrie West, thank you for being here.
Oh, did you take that as my quote? Cool.
No, I didn't. I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. As you know, we have a closing tradition on this podcast where we ask our guests to leave us with their favorite motivational or inspirational quote and what it means to them and to their hustle. I did steal one earlier, so I hope you came up with another one, even though I didn't steal it. You just gave it to me. Thank you for taking the time on this freezing day in Santa Barbara. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for inspiring our listeners. And with that, I will turn the floor over to you.
My favorite quote is, anything can change.
That's it. That's all we got. This has been another episode of Keep Hustling. Remember to do well by doing good. And of course, and always, keep hustling. All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. The listeners are the most important part of this show. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more listeners. Plus, be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. We have some amazing guests and topics lined up for you, and we don't want you to miss out. And finally, if you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod on Instagram, X, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We would love to hear from you to continue the conversation. Thanks again for tuning in and supporting our podcast. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.